Another one. 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 Another one.
What you talking about? What you talking about? What you talking about? What you talking about, Willis?
The ancient American palace, currently classified as an 400-year-old colonial church, is clearly not a church, and based on construction appears thousands of years old. For some unknown reason, it was deliberately drowned and erased from history when the Nezahualcoyotl Reservoir was constructed. Now, because of the extreme drought in Mexico, it has again risen. Asterisk, the term Negro is confined to the slave African, the ancient Berbers, and their descendants. It does not embrace the free inhabitants of Africa, such as the Egyptians, Moors, or the Negro Asiatics, such as the Lascars. United States Act of 1740, Section 4. Slave total per trans-Atlantic import. Dates, 1450-1900, total 11,328,000. The Euro myth that all blacks in the Americas came by way of the Atlantic slave trade is mathematically impossible to have taken place. Where did millions of black people come from? America. There were many black and brown people in the Americas before the Euro conquest ever began. Our history books fail to mention or identify any of these cultures' humanity or contributions, as well as the fact that indigenous nations were here up on their arrival, and very prosperous in the mineral-rich Americas, where the streets were literally paved with gold, diamonds, and precious stones. So where do you think the so-called writers of the New Testament got the fabricated story for the idea of Revelation 21:21 when they came to the new world? They thought they was seeing a new heaven and a new earth, and the streets were paved with gold. America is the biblical promised land. The United States history books, teachers, professors, and media, along with pop culture films like 12 Years a Slave, Django Unchained, or the newly digitized version of Roots, preach only one partial storyline. An incomplete, and highly fabricated whitewashed version of Blacks, a Slave Tale, the lie that has become a matter of fact and absolute in the mind of many. However, most of the great ancient history, culture, humanity, and contributions of this global black nation have been erased, a stolen legacy, an incomplete story, a dogma that states all blacks now in America and around the world were cursed and the descendants of slaves from a jungle savage culture. Who needed to be saved. A helpless primal people who needed to become civilized by enlightened, God-fearing European Christians. The fact that black people were all brought by slave catchers from England, Spain, and Portugal through the Atlantic Ocean Middle Passage in the bottom of slave ships, or the results of runaway slaves intermixing with the Native American population, is simply not true. The black Pacific Island nations are completely written out of history. No one speaks about the contributions or culture of the first Americans or global people of color. The knowledge the Europeans were and are manipulating and blatantly changing the historical facts, fabricating an alternative story full of lies and myths in North America up until the 19th century, was overwhelming, known and documented throughout the world. However, this effort too has disappeared from modern European history and the New World encyclopedias. Mainstream media print publications continue this constant drumbeat to perpetuate an obvious lie and rewrite of global world history. What's being taught in schools and universities by academic scholars over the last 200 years or so has been a complete whitewashing of facts in ancient American and global history. From the first time Europeans, Spaniards, and other invaders yelled, "Land, ho!" upon seeing a place that could only be described as paradise, an invasion and massive global cover-up of epic proportions, along with unprecedented genocide, was underway. So absolute were the methods, it is said that Adolf Hitler utilized the same playbook later to carry out atrocities against the Jews in Europe. The worldwide colonial murder of hundreds of millions of black and brown men, women, and children, around the globe, in many cases wiping out an entire population, indigenous, Polynesians, Native Americans, Tasmanians, Australians, among many others, was systematic while conducting a massive global bleaching campaign to whiten and brighten the otherwise black and brown world population could only be described as the ultimate biblical Holocaust. To make sure the Matrix program of eliminating and erasing total populations off the map and out of ancient world history books and mental public physics was completely implemented, was necessary, so as to guarantee the fake indoctrination plan would remain in place forever. The great secret European invaders did not want to expose was the vast wealth they obtained by taking the land and slaughtering the innocent as well as other past atrocities and invasions done in the name of God and the Pope. Further guaranteeing their global secret, an indoctrination and complex systematic scheme of religion and education was put into place. The main focus of the indoctrination was to erase, delete and dilute the great history of our global ancient black nations who occupied Africa, the Pacific, Atlantic and the Americas along with many other indigenous, native nations, thousands of years before Columbus or any European arrived in America or on the world stage. The status of the Negro, his rights and disabilities. South Carolina, United States Act of 1740. Section 1. All Negroes and Indians, free Indians in amity with the government, Negroes, mulatto, or mestizo who are now free to be slaves, the offsprings to follow the condition of the mother and that such slaves are chattels personal. Section 2. Under the provision, it has been uniformly held that color is prima facie evidence that the party bearing the color of the Negro, mulatto or mestizo is a slave. But the same prima facie result does not follow from the Indian color. Section 3. Indians and the descendants of Indians are regarded as free Indians, in amity with the government until the contrary is shown. Reviewing the Act of 1740, it's very clear that all dark brown, and red-brown/copper color Native Americans, indigenous and Polynesian who were not white enough to pass the degree of color test, no matter their nationality, were enslaved or killed and their land and property stolen. Something that has not been mentioned in historical documentation or any history book. Here is documented proof that the myth and fairy tale we have all been fed is a premeditated lie. As documented by the United States, South Carolina Act of 1740 describe many free black nations here in America, including Egyptians, Moors, Asiatics, original Americans, native, indigos, and mestizos, among others. From the beginning, America was a black and brown continent thousands of years before Europeans left the caves of the Caucasus Mountains. Now that's a fact. The Berber nation. The ancient Berbers included several major groups, the Masmuda, Sanhaja, Kedema, Zenata, and Nefusa, described as dark reddish-brown, black or Ethiopians. An ethnic culture indigenous to northwest Africa, they are the descendants of the pre-Arab population of North Africa from the Egyptian frontier to the Atlantic and from the Mediterranean coast of the Niger River. Having lived in the area for thousands of years, their presence has been recorded as early as 3000 BCE. Greek, Romans, and ancient Egyptians have verified the presence of the Berbers in their records and writing. It was the Arabs that created the notorious myth that Berbers were the descendants of Ham, the son of Noah, who were cursed. However, historical evidence suggests this was done to justify enslavement, murder and the genocide of a total culture and population of people. Through DNA studies, science has once and for all verified that there is only one race and that is the human race that originated in Africa, the first Americans. Relatives of the Negritos, Andaman Association. Malaysians Negritos. Philippine Negritos. Champan of Great Nicobar. Moken of the Burma coast. Beta, Sri Lanka. Bedwa, South India. Dravidian, India. Naga of India. Cuba of Sumatra. Iom, New Guinea and others. Papuans Papua, New Guinea. Melanesians of the Pacific, Australia's Aborigines, Tasmanians, Khoisan of South Africa, Pygmies of Central Africa, Negritios of Japan, China, Negritos in the Americas and Lusia, China Black Dynasties, Shah, Shang Dynasties, c. 2205-1766 BCE. Footnotes. David Imhotep Pg.D. The first Americans were black. Cheikh Anta Diop, The African Origin of Civilization. South Carolina, United States Act of 1740. Ivan Van Sertima They Came Before Columbus. J.G. Jackson Ethiopia and the Origin of Civilization. D.H. Childress Lost Cities and Ancient Mysteries of South America. C.A. Winters Atlantis in Mexico. A.B. Barone History of the African Olmecs. I. Van Sertima African Presence in Early America. The hidden truth is that the first Americans are the so-called black people who occupy the ghettos, slums or poverty-stricken areas in all parts of America, whether it be North, South or Central America. Keep in mind that the land mass of Earth was once all connected, as Greeks called it Pangaea, a time before the great earthquakes that split the land into 7 continents. For this particular literature, I will only bring forth the facts that one can research for themselves. Primarily, let me dissolve the myth that Christopher Columbus or Cristobal Colon the Spaniard discovered America. He did not. In fact, in his diaries he stated that the first people he saw upon his arrival were dark as the so-called Negroes in Africa. He even had a picture painting depicting the Aborigines he captured in America. Still to this day our people can even go to a dictionary, preferably one older than 1840, as the newer dictionaries have been abridged or highly tampered. One can read the definition of American and you will see it states the aboriginal copper-colored people found by T. Europeans. Let me emphasize the word found strongly, as it proves if we were found then apparently we were already here in America, and most of our people have been outcast as true Aboriginal Indians through the divide and conquer strategy. This is why your typical mental image of a Native America most likely follows the straight hair, feather and headdress Hollywood version of an Indian. Many of our darker skin tone Indians have been kicked off reservations and excluded from the reparations. Nevertheless, let us not make any mistake, the lighter skin complexion Native Americans are of the same blood lineage and pedigree as we are really a family. See the picture of the people of the Yamasee Moors tribe near Arizona. As you can see they sit together in an interview in harmony. Yamasee see. No stress enough how we must come back together and lose the ideology that we are not of the same family. Furthermore, if we look at recent DNA test orchestrated by doctors, the oldest tribe in America is the Pima tribe located in what today is called Arizona, though that is not the true Aboriginal name of that area. See Pima Indians from Arizona, Chief Blue Wing and Family. Department of Anthropology, 1904 World's Fair, see picture. Also for the record, in the DNA industry, since many black people have begun to trace their heritage and genealogy, there is a deliberate scam underway in DNA industry, because results can be, and are being, manipulated to remove us from our heritage in America and place us in Africa. Sourcetokhthanis peoples /closing parenthesis. Pima. Let me say that there is nothing wrong at all with Africa and our brethren across the sea. However, many of our people have primla ND they are owed, which the U.S. government will not openly disclose. In fact, Empress of the Washita Nation Verdiasi Golston L. Bay in the court case of 1848 heirs of Henry Turner versus the United States, was secured over 60,000 acres of land from the United States, ascertaining that the U.S. government sold land that they in fact did not have authority to purchase. Research the Washita proper. Many of our people are also unaware that the tomb in the photo below is a preservation of the body of an Aboriginal American found in South America. One can see the dreaded woolly hair clearly. Features of our people. Skeleton. Known of the most indisputable facts are the Olmec heads located in South America, which are some of the oldest found artifacts in that land, colossal stone heads with braided and woolly hair. The historical evidence is truly overwhelming. I could go on for days. Nevertheless, we must all do our independent research to gain true knowledge of ourselves.
Answer this question if you can. If the so-called white man and his ancestors are superior when it comes to this world and all it has to offer, then why are they still disturbing and disrespecting our ancestors, looking for answers to life and their identity? I'll let you ponder on that for a min. Ute.